Hello, folks. Welcome back to the Redeemed Marriage Podcast.
See, on YouTube, I get to wave.
You can wave at me. Hey there. What's up? Okay, so summer shorts, and we're somewhere around question number 6-ish.
Yeah.
Something like that. And hey, we have enjoyed getting all your questions. If you haven't sent one in, be sure to do that. You can go to our website, theredeemedmarriage.com. Click on contact at the top. It's going to drop down. You'll see ask. So there you go. You can ask.
Ask us.
You thought I said something besides
totally did.
ask. Ask. So go there and ask us a question, and you'll be entered into a drawing. The grand prize. That was people clapping.
Was it?
Yeah, because I don't know which button
I don't
to
either,
push.
but there is one.
But that was people cheering because of the grand prize being a double date with us.
Unless you're the nah.
Yeah, she did. She did find one that said, "Nah, we don't want a double date." That's okay. Maybe they were from another country.
Maybe. I honestly didn't look.
Okay. Well, all right. So we're going to answer another question today, but it's not too late. Get your questions in. You've got the rest, all the way till the end of July.
Yeah.
And we'll do something really fun to announce the winner, and we'll let you guys know about that as the time comes. So here we go. Let's roll.
So this one is all the way from Minnesota. I don't even know where that is.
That's not shocking. You don't know where Tennessee is.
Yes, I do. It's above us. Is Minnesota above us?
Way above us.
Like above
way
us and
above
towards
us.
New York, or above us and towards California?
Yeah. So it's kind of more just
Above
above
us?
us.
Okay.
But maybe a little bit to the west-ish. I
So
don't know.
more towards California. How about I look it up while you're talking?
But I've never been to Minnesota. But we've done marriage coaching with somebody up in that direction.
Yep.
So yeah, that's where
Yeah,
you can.
here it is.
Mm-hmm.
It's literally right above.
Straight above us.
Well,
A little
it's
bit.
above
Michigan.
Louisiana.
Michigan is more above us, right?
Yeah.
Straight above
No,
us.
there's Tennessee. See, I told you that was above us. And then Kentucky. Oh, I'm going that way. Arkansas, Missouri,
Yeah.
Iowa. Is that IA?
Uh-huh.
And then Minnesota. So it's way up there by the Canada.
Yep. All right.
Wow.
So thank you.
We could possibly go there. I just
we
remembered.
could. There we go. All right.
It's
so
a big old state, too.
Minnesota.
It takes up the same height as North Dakota and South Dakota combined.
Mm-hmm.
It's really tall state.
North Dakota is where a couple we were coaching, and so they had been to Minnesota. That's why I knew a little bit about that.
It only takes 4 hours and 40 minutes to get there on a plane. On a plane. That's
On
what
a
it
plane.
says. Yeah.
All right. Hey, geography lesson is over. Let's go to the
Yes.
question.
Okay. So here is the question. In a marriage, how should a couple handle when one spouse is touchy-feely and the other does not feel comfortable with it? Now, when I first read that, I thought they meant
Touchy-feely with
each other. And I was like, well, okay. But then it got interesting. Meaning,
Got interesting.
the husband touches other women when talking with them, and this makes the wife uncomfortable. The husband admits he would not touch another man the way he touches the females. So when he's talking to other females, he just is touchy-feely with them. And probably huggy and, patting, and
Yeah.
that's what I'm assuming
yeah.
by what she means by touchy-feely.
Yeah, I think so. I remember there being people as we were growing up, and I mean, not growing up like we were little children, but as we were young adults. And there were people, like, even in our church, that guys, like older men, that would be touchy-feely like that. And it would make you uncomfortable.
Yeah. And I always said something about it. And especially when I was pregnant. What about being pregnant makes a man think it's okay to come and touch my stomach?
Yeah.
You wouldn't normally just come up and touch my stomach without permission.
No.
And there is. And so honestly, my first reaction to this was he's probably making some people uncomfortable and he doesn't even know it.
Right.
You
Right.
know?
He thinks he's being kind
Right.
and, showing some compassion and
Yep.
even what he thinks is innocent affection.
Right.
But
And-
yeah, you're right. It's probably for most people, they probably don't like it.
And he probably needs to be told that it makes people uncomfortable. Because if his wife just says it makes me uncomfortable as your wife, which we'll get to that in a minute. But if she just says it makes me uncomfortable, then he can get all defensive and, be like, I'm not doing anything wrong, da 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 da. But if she's like, you're making other people uncomfortable,
Yeah, and
that
maybe
lands
and maybe
different.
that's a way to kind of address that anyway, is to be able to say, as the wife, to be able to say, I don't really like it when other guys even maybe even take it a little extreme and say, I don't really like the front hugs and it makes me uncomfortable. And to be honest, I think it makes a lot of women uncomfortable when guys that aren't their husbands.
And I mean, that means like frontal hugs. It means even side hugs holding on a little too long. Like, it's like, I don't want to be up against you like that. It's very uncomfortable and inappropriate. And the touchy-feely, like, even like I've seen, which I am adamant about women counseling women and men counseling men. But even in certain situations where a man grabs a woman's hand, like talking to her, like, oh, I'm so sorry. I'm like, it's just, you always need to be thinking about the other person and how that might make them feel. And I think in this instance, he's probably making some people uncomfortable, maybe not meaning to.
Yeah.
But it's, and that could be an easy way to approach it.
Yeah, so that's definitely one way.
Yeah. So that's the Daisy Duke answer. But let's go into the Summer Short answer, where even if he's not making anybody feel uncomfortable that he's touching, he's making his wife feel uncomfortable.
Yes, and that's the part that
And
matters.
that's the part that matters. So let's get beyond the just stop touching people and dive in a little bit to what it means to be respectful of your spouse's wishes, even if you don't understand them.
Yeah. I think that we've dealt with this through the years. We've talked about this so many times on our podcast because for us, pre-infidelity and even during that time, like that was you. I mean, you were very comfortable being a little bit. I mean, over friendly, a little bit flirtatious. Even at times when you thought it was very innocent, and I would bring it up, and then again, we're not saying we've had this conversation so many times, but you were very good at just turning it back on me. And it was, well, people think you're rude because you're not being. And now looking back on it, I mean, we both have completely different perspectives on that.
Right.
And it's not that people thought I was rude. That was just your way of making yourself feel better because of what your line of thinking was and what was going on in your heart. But now looking at it, you're like, man, I mean, I was trying to protect me and us and our marriage. And so when that's happening and your other spouse is doing something that it makes you uncomfortable and you need to have that conversation with them, so then it becomes, well, what if they just don't care? What if they don't do anything about it? What if they're not showing the respect that you deserve? And how do you move forward from that?
Right. Yep. And that gets tricky. Because it would be really easy if every spouse, when their significant other says, hey, this makes me uncomfortable, that they just said, done. Like, okay, well, then I won't do it. And that's not just in this touchy-feely. That's in things that you watch on TV. It's in places that you go. I mean, it's in, okay, for example, I'm just going to give an example. For example, part of my infidelity story started at a gym. I could really throw a fit about that if I wanted to, because you don't like for me to go to a gym anymore, because that's where it started, and that's where I was really searching for affirmation that was unhealthy. And so because of that a gym is very uncomfortable for you. Well, I could throw a fit. I mean, it's been almost 13 years since our infidelity, and I have yet to go back into a male-female gym. And I could throw a fit and be like, you're being ridiculous. I don't see it that way. Why don't you trust me? All of those things. But instead, I see that as a huge hurt for you. And I caused that. Like, my choices caused that. And so because of that, it's very easy for me to say, done deal. Then that's not important. And we have talked about it and discovered a way. I go to an all women's gym now, and to bar, and I love it. I have friendships there, and I don't have to worry about any guys being there because they don't go to bar. I don't think it's forbidden, but I just don't think they come to bar. And so with that being said, that is an area that I choose to be respectful of your wishes, because continuing to go to the gym would be more damaging towards our relationship than not. So again, I'm going into the place of, well, I submitted to that. And I don't know if submit's the right word, but I honored that for you. I honored that request. And so if you are a spouse that has been through infidelity or not, maybe your spouse is just trying to protect you from something, or maybe they see a red flag.
Yeah.
That's like, hey, I'm uncomfortable with this because of what it could lead to.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's a big thing. Like, if I had been open to that instead of defensive, then it probably could have kept me from getting into the situation that I was in.
Yep.
And so I think that you have to talk about it. You can't just ignore it or hem-haw around about it. You have to talk about it and say, hey, this makes me exceedingly uncomfortable. And whether it makes the other people uncomfortable or not, it makes me uncomfortable. And out of respect for me, I'm asking you not to do it. Now, to circle back around to where you were, of what if it's still a no?
Yeah. And I was trying to just think, because you mentioned like a TV show or something something that you watch. Yeah. And there's plenty of stuff out there that we could use as an example. And I'm trying not to step on toes again.
Here you go. You're fixing to talk about The Bachelor, aren't you?
All right. So I was, but then I changed my mind because back in the day, the show.
That's right. We don't know what it was. We don't know what it's like now, but 13 years ago.
Yeah, we don't. I mean, I haven't watched it, but no, I was actually going to say back in the day there was a show. I don't think it's still on, but it was called Baywatch, right? I don't know if it's still on.
Yes, I know the show, but I don't know if it's still on.
But I never watched Baywatch. But that would be one of those things that if I enjoyed watching Baywatch, and you said, "Why do you watch that?" And I was like, it's a great story. You know, there's always something exciting. I mean,
find another story.
Yes. Like, that's just one of those things that it's like, that's not okay. If your spouse is like, that's not good, because what does that lead to? Well, it leads to images in your mind. It leads to, oh, well, I need something more than that, you know? And so you have to be respectful. If you said the words red flags, and if your spouse is seeing a red flag in something that you're doing, touching other women as you're talking in a, even if it's a non-affectionate way.
Just a flirtatious way.
Yeah, or just in a kind way. I mean, I think I know what this person's saying because I know people that I'm actually friends with,
Yeah.
and when they laugh, they just put their, they touch, and but if that's something that makes you uncomfortable, especially if you've had a conversation where the guy says, "Well, I wouldn't touch a dude like that."
Yeah.
Well, if you're not going to touch a dude like that, don't touch another woman like that,
Right. Yeah.
And so I think that there has to be this conversation if the spouse says, "Well, I just don't care what you think. That's just who I am. I'm going to do it anyway." Well, that's something wrong with your heart. That's something wrong with
their heart.
Their heart. Yes.
Right.
They
Right.
need, and you just have to continue telling them how uncomfortable it makes you. And there maybe even needs to be some sort of, okay, let's say they're just like, "Oh, that's just who I am. I don't know that I can stop doing that." Okay, well, let me help you stop doing that. So maybe it needs to be brought to their attention when it happens, because maybe it's just one of those things that they've done so many times over and over that they don't even realize they're doing it. So I'm just trying to think about this situation. You're in church together. The husband's talking to a lady, reaches out, pats her or whatever. Well, maybe there's a way as you're standing there.
Touch his elbow.
Yeah, that you're touching his elbow to say, "That's what I'm talking about." This because it's not like, "Hey, there you go, touching again."
Right,
It's not.
right,
It's
right,
not that. It's just, I want to help you so that you see what you're doing that hurts me.
And that is an appropriate way to handle it if the person is willing. Like if this man said, "Oh gosh, I didn't realize I was doing that. Help me, let me, are you sure that's what I'm doing?" And you're like, "Yeah, I can, help you see that you're doing that." But I think where it's hitting home for this particular person is, what if they don't agree with you? And, another thing I thought of when you were talking is, how would this man feel if other men were touching his wife like that? Like, that should bother him.
Yeah.
So I wonder if it's just something that's one-sided, where he just doesn't see, where it's flipping the script a little bit to, what if a man was talking to me and was touching me like that?
Yeah.
Would that be okay with you?
Yeah.
And hopefully it wouldn't be.
So as I was thinking about this, there's a whole world of other things that could open up, and this is one of those things that there's not really. We hate using the word compromise and negotiate because it sounds like somebody is giving up something and losing. But I'm going to use the word compromise anyway, because there's not really a compromise here. I mean, it's not like you can say, "Oh, well, that makes you uncomfortable, but I don't necessarily agree with it, so maybe I'm going to do this instead." Like, it's kind of like, what? Like, there's no compromise. Sometimes in situations like that, like this, there are some things that can be discussed and talked about. I'm not going to go into the details, but we had a situation the other day that was about to happen, and I was a little uncomfortable with it. And so I said something to you, and it sort of derailed you a little bit because you weren't expecting it, but you were obviously respectful of what I said, and so you were like, "Oh, well, I'm not going to go there because I understand how you feel." But we could have discussed it and had a compromise of, "Oh, well, if it's important that you go there, let's go together." Or, let's make sure that the appropriate boundaries are in place so that I feel comfortable. There were things that could have been discussed and talked about. So I also want to throw that out there in that everything is not so much the black and white. There is some areas where it's, "Hey, let's talk about this."
Right.
I mean, I'm thinking about, you mentioned the gym thing. Well, for us, that was a very black and white thing. But for some people, it may be, well, we need to go together. Like, that's the compromise, is that we're never going to go to the gym without the other the other person.
Yep. And that's a fix.
And that's right. That's a fix. there's discuss. It's all about communication, but in the communication, it's being very, very respectful of the person.
That's right. And let's go back to what you watch on TV or things you listen to, or because a lot of that can be very inappropriate, even where you go to eat. I mean, like, if you told me you were going to Hooters to eat, sorry, but all the guys are going there.
They got good chicken wings.
Whatever. I would be mortified.
Yeah.
And I would be like, I don't want. And so what if you just continued to go there, even though you knew it bothered me? That is just lack of respect for your spouse and for your marriage. And it's blatant. And I just don't. I think that there's just not a place. There has to be an alternative. There is nothing that you can stand so firmly on that there's not a better alternative that would make your spouse happy. Like the chicken wings, but they have good chicken wings. Find another place. Wingstop, great.
Definitely other places that have chicken wings
that cover their boobs, like every time. Okay. The gym, like I did, I found a gym that was only women, or you go together. I'm not saying everybody has that problem at the gym. That was just for me. What you watch on TV. Oh, I know that there's massive sex scenes in this, but it's a great story. There's other stories. Find another story. Like, it's just not that hard.
Right. Your marriage is worth it. And that's the thing. The boundaries that you put in place, the extreme measures that you go to protect yourself and to protect your marriage, they're worth it.
And I feel like, I stand firm in this. If there is someone who is battling you on that, like, oh, it's fine. It's really not that big of a deal. You don't need to be upset about that. That is them not being respectful of your decision, and from personal experience, they're probably hiding something. And not hiding something like, oh my gosh, they're having an affair, but they're not willing to give up whatever it is they're doing for the sake of their marriage. And I think that's a problem.
Yes, and like, even in this situation, I mean, can you look at it and go, well, do you really think the person's hiding something just because they're touching another, they're touching somebody? But what they might be hiding is they like the affirmation that they get they like the smile that they get from the woman as they touch their arm or whatever, as they hug them. And that's what they're hiding. They don't want to give...
the enjoyment of it.
That's right. They don't want to give that up. And they may be masking it, not even really realizing it, but maybe masking it I'm just a nice person, that's just me. I just want to be kind to people. But there's a reason somewhere in there. There is a reason for that.
And I mean, I can say this because that was me.
Yes.
And I did that all the time. I was very flirty. I would say, oh, I would much rather hang around guys because I'm not a girly girl. I mean, I said all of these things that made it okay in my head. But all of that was because I enjoyed the affirmation. It made me feel better about myself. I felt valued. All of those things that I should have been getting from my relationship with the Lord and my relationship with you. But instead, it was more enjoyable and more fun and more exciting to get it elsewhere.
And here's the thing. For those first 14 years of our marriage, they were not driven by infidelity. It genuinely was your personality and who you thought that you were, who you were, and you thought that was okay.
Right.
But where did it lead?
Right.
And that's where we're going with this,
Slippery
because
slope.
it's just the slippery slope that can lead to something that you're not expecting. And so, I mean, are we saying that for 15 years or 14 years that you were kind to men, that was all of it leading to infidelity? Well, no, you still made those choices, but it was fueling this I need this affirmation from people. And when you didn't stop it, it just kept going.
And it was
going.
gradual steps
Yep.
that led me in the wrong direction.
Yep.
Instead of stopping it and saying, I respect you in this way. I'm going to do this even though it doesn't make sense to me. And choose to do it that way, to honor you and to honor my relationship with the Lord and honor other women. Like in this case, be honoring.
And honoring other husbands.
Yes. Like you have no business
Yeah.
touching flirtatiously other women, especially other women that have a spouse.
Yep.
And not only that, if they don't, they're still a daughter of the king. Don't touch them that way when you are married and it's inappropriate.
Yep. So good. Thank you, Minnesota.
Good question, Minnesota.
Good question.
We kind of ran down multiple paths to get there, but we got there.
It was good. Well, there were other questions that we've seen that were very similar to that, just asked in a little bit of a different way. So we kind of wanted to hit some of those questions as well. So, hey, thanks for listening. Enjoyed being with you this week. You guys have a great week, and we'll see you next week.